Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc N Lefty program here on webcast1live.com. This is Lefty coming to you from the webcast1live.com studios in beautiful downtown Des Moines. It's been a rainy week. It's going to continue to be a rainy week, so I hope that you guys are staying dry and appreciating the actual spring that we're having this year as opposed to going from winter to summer like we did the last 2 years. But regardless of all that, with me, he's recasting Look Who's Coming to Dinner with Cliven Bundy and Don Sterling. It's my good buddy, Pat Petrosh. Pat, what's up?
Hey, what's going on? You know, I'm glad you mentioned that because we're going to have two guests in the chair tonight. Both of them African American. One is John Narcisse. He's going to be here about 7.
Oh. And
Benji Cunningham, and he's been a guest here before. Both of them are rather conservative. So Benji says he's going to call in here about 7 o'clock to talk about what's his name? David Sterling?
Don Sterling.
Don Sterling. And so anyway, we got a great show lined up. People that are just tuning in, you missed me giving Ed a lot of guff about climate change down in the Southwest because, you know, millions of years ago, down in the Southwest was covered by water, and now it's just covered by dirt. So, you know, apparently climate change then was positive. What do you have to say about that, Lefty?
Oh, you mean...
positive climate change?
Positive climate change to what end?
Well, you know, listen, we now have a lot more land we can live on.
Okay.
Down there in the Southwest.
All right.
Oh, my goodness. This is going to be a Lefty.
I guess I don't understand the argument.
I can't even poke the bear tonight.
You mean all climate change? You mean all climate change has to be bad for you to accept that it might be bad, that some of it might be bad?
Well,
I'll tell you
I'm
what.
just saying, well, because the way the liberals say it, all climate change is bad.
Oh, I don't think that I've heard that argument.
Oh yeah, well,
I've heard the argument that I've heard.
Money?
That what money? What money are we spending on it?
Millions and billions of dollars.
Millions and billions of dollars. Really?
There's 500 million right down Solindra's tubes.
Really?
Yeah, there's supposed to be. $500 million isn't enough for you.
You know what I would? $500 million is a drop in the bucket compared to the oil subsidies that folks like Exxon and BP get.
You know what? I think we can both agree that we should end subsidies to energy companies. Don't you agree?
100%.
There you go. See, left and right agreeing. So now if we can just get our political class to do it, we'd be in a much better shape. You know, let the free market run free.
Here's the issue. I mean, climate change. We're dovetailing off of Ed's show a little bit, and that's fine with me because I was asking about this before we went on, and honestly, the larger conversation about that I texted you about earlier today about racism and discrimination and different things that kind of have predictably burbled back up again over the last couple of weeks. That we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But the question that I ask is that there seems to be this boogeyman of taking action on climate change that the right continues to prop up, that we can't do it, it's too harmful, we can't do it. And my question that I can't seem to get answered in a logical way, and I know that you're the king of the logic game, so I'm coming to you with this. If the dangers of climate change are accurate, okay? If just for the sake of argument, the sea level rise and the losing, you know, Sri Lanka being flooded over and sink to the bottom of the ocean and the polar bears going extinct, if all that stuff, if all those things and more and worse are bound to happen, why is it so bad that we might, if on the off chance that stuff happens, why can't we take common sense steps now to address that bad stuff that might happen?
Well, your very question answers itself. One, what is the common sense steps?
Well, no.
And number two,
okay.
You asked, what are the common sense? One, we're going to disagree on the common sense steps. And two, if it's accurate. And that's the problem. When you start looking at
so
these
we should
things,
do nothing.
The problem is the climate changes. It naturally changes. And there is historic precedents, prehistoric precedents, for it to change as quickly as it's been changing now. At one point, our Arctic Ocean was 62 degrees. I think now it's hovering around 28 degrees or whatever it is. So it's a 40-degree difference. When you start looking at the ice ages, I mean, the ice retreated not in 10,000 years, but in about 500 years. That's what they're finding out with these studies. So the problem is are these predictions going to be accurate? We don't know. There's all kinds of things that could be that could be causing this.
And there are things that we could do to stave it off or mitigate it that the right doesn't want to do at all.
Well,
Why is
cap
that?
and trade? Is that what you're talking about? Cap and trade's a disaster. All it means is I'm buying a permit for my corporation to be able to pollute. All that means is there's just more money floating around. It's just
So that was a
tax.
bad Republican idea then.
Yes.
Cap and trade was?
Yes. I think
what would you say? Now, I wasn't talking specific policy points, but I mean, we can talk about cap and trade for a second. So what's the weather's been pretty rainy, right? Last couple of days.
It's climate change.
We've been having some
climate changes.
We've been having some rain. No, well, it's weather. There's a difference.
What?
But your local, the thing that you don't fall into that stupid Hannity trap of thinking that the weather that affects you is the broader climate in general, because I don't want you to sound like an idiot.
Well, I'm just saying I know the difference between climate and weather. Climate changes, weather changes.
We're having some weather, some rain the last couple of days. Now, how much of that rain has been acid rain? Little to none, right? I don't think that my suit hasn't melted off my body today because I've been walking out in the rain.
No.
You know? And what caused acid rain back in the 70s when we had that bad problem with acid rain? Sulfur, right?
Yeah.
We regulated that through cap and trade, didn't we? Didn't we? We don't have nearly the smog.
It's time for a break. We'll be back right after a word from our sponsors. Thanks everybody for tuning in, listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m.
On the whole, I think Washington, D.C. is a terrible place. It's hot, it's humid, kind of smells, and it's totally lacking individuals who know how to create jobs and live within their means. Hi, I'm Brad Zahn, and I approve this message. And I'm running for Congress because we owe it to future Iowans to fix the mess that was created in Washington, D.C. I've had real experience creating jobs, cutting taxes, and balancing budgets while mayor and in the state senate. If you trust me to represent you, I promise I'll go to Washington, D.C. and do the right thing and come home every Sunday to spend time with my wife, my kids, and my neighbors here in Iowa. We cannot leave this country in worse shape than we found it. I will not pass this debt on to my children or yours. I will go to Washington, D.C. and tell them enough is enough. Standing together is the only way we're going to get Washington, D.C. to listen, and I hope you'll join me in this fight.
Brad Zahn for United States Congress.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Now, the climate, we could have a broader discussion about climate change and all that, because we don't have that much time to really devote our full Doc and Lefty attention to it. But I wanted to move the discussion to what's been going on the last couple of days. I'm sure that you all have heard about the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, Donald Sterling.
Let's get to that when our guests get
Do you
here.
want to wait? I feel like I want to have that broader topic about racism in America with them, but I wanted to kind of set up the discussion before they call in to kind of get our perspective, because I don't want to. We obviously know racism exists, and that racist thoughts exist, and that people and then in this country we have this hardcore reaction to it, whether it's firing, or whether it's Paula Dean losing her show or Donald Sterling being banned from the NBA for life. There seems to be this big issue in this country with racism, and that's a deliberate understatement, because we have a very, very troubled racial history, as you know. As everybody knows, it's
Absolutely.
it's common knowledge. But the question that I wanted to pose to you before we bring our guests on to talk about, different perspectives with this question, we have had over the last few days and the last few months and years, and it just seems it seems on a constant loop. Public figures who are non-political. Paula Dean wasn't the figurehead of any party. Rush Limbaugh, but I mean, we can argue about that one. That was relatively minor, and he was making lots of money with the show anyway, so that wasn't that big of a deal. Don Imus, not political, really. He wasn't a political leader of any. He didn't express a lot of political views. Don Sterling donated to a couple of Democrats back in, I think, 2001 and 1989, but not a political person. Wasn't out there with political views. And these certainly are Clive and Bundy, more political, but not an elected official. These are non-elected people who have no power in our government aside from what their wealth can afford them. You know, what they can do in the private sector. They're not making legislation, they're not doing all this stuff. So my question is, it seems like we are bound and determined to make these people political figureheads and to put political weight behind them. Cliven Bundy, I think predictably, was revealed to have some pretty weird racial ideas and to express racist viewpoints. And I say predictably because he was spouting off about the sovereign citizen stuff and all the states' rights stuff for a long time before all the rest of this, and that's rooted in the white power movement in the late 19th century, early 20th century, right? So whether he is somebody that actively goes out and discriminates against African Americans, that's not the point of this question. But immediately the left pops up and says, oh, you can't, the right, you've been lionizing this guy, you've been propping him up, and aren't you stupid, and all this stuff, making it a political issue. Don Sterling revealed to have some pretty awful stuff, and it actually discriminated in the real world, and had to pay out millions of dollars in settlements to minorities that he discriminated against in his housing and rental properties. Fox News comes out, well, this is a Democrat. This is a guy that's been given to Democratic candidates, and even though he's a registered Republican, which no one reported on that until recently. But immediately, well, these racist Democrats, and we can't do. Doesn't that cloud the overall discussion? And why do we feel like we need to do that now? Well,
I'm going to go right back to a theme that's common to us. Media has to sell papers. And anything that's going to hit a hot button issue is going to be divisive in America is what's going to sell. So that's what they do. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, this Don Sterling, I watched the entire 17-minute tape thinking, well, maybe they edited something out because, people in media do that. No, it's really pretty bad. It's really pretty bad stuff. And to his mixed girlfriend who appeared to be 12. I mean, not 12, but she didn't appear any older than 25. Mm-hmm. And, you look at that and you say to yourself, well, what in the world are you thinking? And he's sitting here going, well, I'm providing these African Americans on my team a job and houses and all this benefit. Nobody else is doing that. Well, yeah, I get that, but there's a different way to say that. And to say, well, I don't want blacks at my party, it's these people, they're people too. And call that racist, but if you're going to be out having, using people to be able to further your money, which is isn't he LA Clippers? Isn't he the guy? Yep. And, you need to stop and take a step back and go, well, that's probably not all that bright. So we're going to really get into this from, Benji Cunningham's going to call in about 7 o'clock. John Narciss is supposed to be here at about 7 o'clock. So we're going to have them, get their take on it, because they're both black, and both of them are people whose opinions we both respect.
That's right.
So, and I do believe the NBA has overreacted to this, because you have plenty of
and that's the question I'm getting to, right?
Yeah.
Why is it that actually, let me finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, my thought was we're going to take a break, be back right after the break. There's a lot of stuff that happened in the last week in local politics. So we're going to take that segment and we're going to cover a lot of the local politics. A lot of people think Governor Branstad is vulnerable now. I think they're crazy. And there's a lot of other things that are boiling out in the GOP that's really going to have national implications. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. Please visit our website, docandlefty.com. Please visit our sponsors, Brad Zahn for Congress, Halo Capital, Bertrosian Associates, Lubinas Law Firm. Please follow us on Facebook, like our page, please. Follow us on Twitter. We'd appreciate it. We'll be back right after these breaks.
Bertrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Bertrosian Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We got our guests lined up. They're going to be here shortly. Doc had mentioned before the break, talking about a little stuff that's going on in the local GOP and local politics. And you know what, Doc? I actually wanted to talk to you, and I'd brought this up to you a while back. I listened to the Republican debate from last week.
IPTV?
IPTV, yes, sir. Right. They had Keith Shaban, I think that's his name, right? Yes. Matt Whitaker, Joni Ernst, Sam Clovis, and then Jacobs. Is it Mark Jacobs?
Mark Jacobs.
And those five, I think, were on the stage. And I got to tell you, it sounded like a lot of more of the same to this guy. But but interestingly enough, Sam Clovis, the young man from Northwest Iowa, he's not particularly young, but he's not that old either, came off the best. What'd you think about that?
Well, I think the thing is Sam Clovis is articulate, and he's come off. I mean, he used to be in radio. He quit for this. Mm-hmm. He's espousing a lot of conservative issues, and he's phrasing it and framing it in such a way that the common man can understand. I mean, let's face it, Joni Ernst, she's the number one person running. There's no need for her to do anything out of the ordinary. Matt Whitaker, he's starting to really position himself as a Tea Party favorite. Hang on, let me close the door here. And the other candidates are doing a pretty good job of just trying to maintain where they're at. Matt Whitaker is really getting aggressive in his stances, and that's really what it was. And the Family Forum debate the next day was pretty much the same. And he really did rally, Sam Clovis really did rally a lot of conservatives.
I think there are a few things a few takeaways. 'Cause I listened to it on my phone. I didn't actually watch it, so I wasn't able to see any of the body language. But I got to tell you, Joni Ernst sounded like she had a little bit of work to do. That maybe the cut pork ad was a little bit of running before she was ready to walk. Just her answers were good. You know, she knows a lot about stuff, but it seemed like she was just a little bit behind the ball on some of Iowa's issues and some of the social issues that Iowa's facing. Matt Whitaker, you know my opinion about him. You know that I know him a little bit, and while he certainly liked to talk, just like Sam did, he just didn't seem ready. He didn't seem that he was really prepared. Well, he sounded okay. I mean, he's a lawyer. He was prepared, but it just. But to you,
he didn't seem to really. Well, and the thing is, we get back to Joni Ernst is really the one that has to win this, and there for a while, it was kind of a 3-man race or three person race, I should say. And with that commercial, Joni kind of leaped ahead. Now, Sam Clovis, everybody likes Sam Clovis. I mean, if you talk to the conservatives, they like him. If you talk to the moderates, they like him. They say, we understand why he comes from where he comes from.
I don't know, man. To the question about how conservative is too conservative, Sam's answer was you can't be too conservative. I don't think that's going to play over in Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Dubuque, and Cedar Rapids.
Well, and that may be true, but, take it in the vein in which it was asked. I mean, how conservative? I mean, if you look at people that are successful, they utilize conservative practices in their own life. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, people don't. I mean, when you talk about conservatives, you're talking about hard work, fiscal responsibility, and all that. That's really what it is. The other thing is Sam Clovis is starting. is starting to take back the very issues that made the Republican Party great in the first place that the Democrats have co-opted. You've said this several times. How come the Republicans aren't talking about jobs?
Yep.
And I think that's where Sam Clovis is coming from. One of the things that was important, I think, is Shaban was up there.
Yep.
He said he didn't care about gay marriage. And that kind of segues into this next thing. The first district Republicans have said, we're wanting to take gay marriage or the government interference of marriage and regulation of marriage out of our plank.
Yep.
And I think this is a survival response from the evangelicals because they don't want to. And I talked a little bit about Ed earlier, and we talked about it before. But their fear is that a gay couple will want to get married, and then will force the church they belong to marry them. And I think that's the first step, the first crack in this foundation. The problem is just like, we talked several times before, the evangelicals may not have, massive wealth like maybe some of the other Republican Party or Republican areas may have, but they're much more willing to give, particularly on issues like abortion. You gotta be careful not to alienate them. Mm-hmm. But in the first district, they said, we want to take that plank off because, as we've talked about before, if there wasn't a Defense of Marriage Act, there wouldn't have been a Varnum decision. There wouldn't have had a law to go against,
Well, but if there wasn't a law, because the code says a marriage shall be between one man and one woman. That's in like 598(1), I think, or whatever it is, and that's still in the books. I was in the code this afternoon, and that's 2011. It's still there 2 years after the Varnum decision. But I see it a different way. I see it as you're hearing these Republicans like Oklahoma say, hey, look, if you're going to let gay people get married, then we're just not going to have marriage for anybody. And we're going to say the state doesn't have any involvement in marriage at all. We're going to take our ball and go home. You don't hear Iowa Republicans, as conservative as they are, making that particular case. However, I view leaving that off the table as some Republicans out there seeing that, hey, maybe this is more of a conservative issue than we're letting on. There are LGBT conservatives who have been screaming at the top of their lungs for decades that how could you let the Democrats take this issue from us? Because marriage, family, those kind of local control of your family without the government interfering in your personal business, that sounds pretty conservative to me. And the evangelicals have turned it around into this big moral stance that when they say, look, if you let it happen, you're going to normalize it and then society will crumble. Well, here it is 5 years from Varnum and nothing is crumbling
anymore than it was before.
Yeah. So,
well, the other thing is the Des Moines Register has really worked really hard to try to smear Branstad with just about anything they can. The Toledo, I think we both agree Toledo was a bad thing to have happen, and it shouldn't have happened under his watch. But the bottom line is he responded in about the only way he could respond, which is he fired the people involved, shut it down, and is going to shift these kids over to a different facility. And so whether you agree with what he did or not, he did something. And then you have these payouts to these, quote, disgruntled employees. Well, when he found out who was that his main guy was lying to him, he fired him and got rid of a couple more staff. And then now you have this Matt Schultz, Jim Gibbons, where the Des Moines Register is trying to attach that fiasco to Branstad. Well, none of this is going to stick. Matt Schultz. Do you know about this?
I don't know about this. No.
Well, Matt Schultz, and I know Matt Schultz. I think he's a good guy. He's a great campaigner, hard worker. And I know Jim Gibbons. Jim Gibbons is a hard worker, good guy. But apparently what happened is Matt Schultz consolidated Jim's position and put it under the auditor's office, under Mary Mosman, who we also have met and enjoyed. And what essentially has happened is Jim was out of a job. So Matt says, well, you can keep your job at $126,000 a year as long as you come in and, act like you're doing something. Well, no emails go back and forth. No work was getting done. And Gibbons could keep his job until he found another one or till the end of the year. Well, that's much more a black eye on Matt Schultz rather than a black eye on Governor Branstad. And the issue I'm looking at is how does that shake up the congressional primary?
Right.
Because, everybody's been saying, well, Brad Zahn's the man to beat, which I still believe. I believe it 100%. But then the financial numbers came out, and Brad hadn't raised as much money as Matt Schultz. And everybody's like, oh, now it's a wide open race. Well, I don't think so, because the next competitor, Matt Schultz, just shot himself in the foot. That's a giant issue. Well, I'm going to use taxpayer money to make sure my friend is taken care of at least until the end of the year. Now, I understand it. And if you're using your own money, terrific. But you're using state money, and it's just no good. And, and I do respect Matt Schultz, but I think he really messed up on this one. The other thing is Brad Zahn, I know from a couple of polls that have been taken that haven't been released, Brad Zahn still leads the pack by a bunch. Now, Brad says he's going to have a poll coming out this week, so hopefully he'll share it with us.
Sounds good.
Now, next up, we're going to have John Narcisse. He just stepped into the studio. We'll get him set up. We'll start talking about race relations. Benji Cunningham's supposed to call in here pretty soon. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Doc N Lefty. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. We have a website, petrosianassociates.com. We blog all the time, so we would like to hear what you guys think about what we write. So please check out docandlefty.com and start, tweeting or tweeting. What do you call it? Tweeting. And doing all that stuff, because we really do want to hear from you. We'll be back right after this break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for the first half hour. With us is the luminary, the inimitable, the always, what would you say, opinionated?
Always opinionated. Always verbally aggressive.
Data-driven. John Narcisse. John, it's been a long time. I haven't talked to you in an awful long time. I know that you keep in touch with this guy for a while, and he told me that you were going to be here, and I said, boy, we only have an hour-long show, Pat. I don't know that we got enough time for both you, John, and me to be in the same room together because we all like to talk. But so I brought up early on in the show the
well, we also have Benji Cunningham on the show.
Here we go.
Let's get him on. Hey, Benji.
We had a suit up with our headphones there, I think, right?
Yeah. Hey, Benji, you there?
I am here. How are you?
Hey, how you doing down there? We're here with John Narcisse. Do you remember meeting him?
Yes, I do.
All right. So we're doing a big lead in for John because he kind of likes that stuff. Luckily for us, he has not gone flaming out of a balloon yet this year. That's always been good. So we're kind of getting lined up to discuss a little bit of this Don Sterling situation. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, but really, what's your opinion on Don Sterling's penalty for this? He's banned for life from the NBA, a multi-million-dollar fine. Do you think the NBA went overboard on this?
I don't know if they went overboard. I think that the $2.5 million, I think, is a drop in the bucket for him. Here's the deal, and I think I've spoken about this before. Racism, you're never going to erase racism. The problem that I'm having is you got to understand the definition of racism is that you can have a very adverse perspective of someone of a different race, color, or creed, but you're in the position of power to adversely affect. And so there's a couple of things that I feel about this. First of all, was it too stiff? He's going to adversely affect the NBA as a whole, and it's 80% African American. So that's the first thing he's going to do. And I think from a business perspective, I think the NBA was very well founded on getting rid of him, and they did it for money. They did it for money reasons first. Let's be real.
Yep.
They did. Yeah, they did it for money first, and second of which, I mean, obviously, it's not the flavor of the moment in the culture.
Why do you think it took so long, Benji? This guy has been out there for a long time. He's on the team for a long time. And he's been doing this kind of stuff and saying this kind of stuff and behaving in such a way as to actually discriminate against people, and they just get to it now.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it again. The other reason why, or not the primary reason why for the lifetime ban was because of money reasons. So why not before? Because most of his stuff wasn't as publicly egregious as what he did with, clearly the young lady set him up. I mean, there's no question about that it was set up in the court of public opinion. This guy had no he had no chance.
Mm-hmm.
So it was done for money reasons now, so the NBA does not lose out on the income. I mean, all of the sponsors deserted.
They bailed out. John, what do you think about that? Do you think his punishment was too much?
Well, the economic reality is had the NBA not acted in this manner, it would have had the potential to literally disrupt operations. It's like Jalen Rose said, where after the whole point came out about he feeds the player, clothes the players, and all that other kind of stuff, there are players who probably would have just sat down. Sat down. I mean, you got to understand, these are millionaires who don't have to make another dime, most of them, to live comfortably, who would have been able to play for other teams had he not finally come up with the money. So this is not a situation where they were just going to simply accept a slap on the wrist or a suspension like in the Mars Shot case with the Cincinnati Reds.
Right.
If they did not come down hard on him, the players likely would have taken this into the matter. Not only would folks have boycotted the Clippers games, but there's a possibility that when the Clippers were scheduled to play other teams, that those players may have become sick or ill or been injured and not played. This had the potential to disrupt the entire brand. So they had simply no choice, not only to hand the severity of this penalty down, but also to make the move to basically force him to sell his team.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I've read a couple of places, and I just want you guys' opinion on this, the feeding and clothing of the black athletes resonated much more strongly than many other phrases, simply because it smacked of slavery, because that's what a lot of the slave owners did. Is that you guys' take on this? We'll start with Benji.
That's exactly my take. I think that he ran that organization exactly like a plantation mentality.
Okay.
So I'm not saying he ran it like a mentality, because obviously, slaves are not paid, but he ran it like a slave. Listen to the words.
Yep.
I clothed them. I bought them cars, whatever. And it's like, you know what?
Well, he said, he said he was giving it to them.
Well, but
not that they were earning it.
Yes.
Here's where the failure, though, to understand, I think, even the full history of slavery is makes it more difficult to have this conversation. I mean, people forget slaves were able at some point, in some instances, to buy their freedom. Most people don't know that eventually Dred Scott bought his freedom after the Supreme Court said, no, you're not free, after he was brought to Fort Snelling here in Iowa. You had the whole purpose of the initial university system that was created was because so many slave owners wanted their children to be educated. People don't realize Frederick Douglass learned how to read on the lap of his master's wife because Frederick Douglass' father was white. It's just like I heard somebody say, well, Donald Sterling had a half Latino, half black girlfriend.
So he can't be racist. That's my
George
favorite.
Washington had black kids, Thomas Jefferson, Blanche K. Bruce, first African-American governor in U.S. history. His father was white and a slave owner. So it's the failure to understand the history of both racism and slavery does us a disservice. But I want to add one other thing too. While we often focus on issues in Florida with, for example, Trayvon Martin or Nevada with Cliven Bundy, or in this case, L.A., we have some very serious racial issues in Iowa. And one of the things I've recently been critical of is that
we're gonna get back to that right after the break, okay, sure. Jonathan? We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We have Jonathan Narcisse, who is an luminary here in Iowa. Benji Cunningham, who is a conservative black, who has graciously joined us. We like having both these people on. Don't forget to join us on docandlefty.com. We write blogs all the time. We want your opinions on that. We're on Facebook and Twitter. We'll be back right after the break. Thanks, everybody, for joining in.
On the whole, I think Washington, D.C. is a terrible place. It's hot, it's humid, kind of smells, and it's totally lacking individuals who know how to create jobs and live within their means. Hi, I'm Brad Zahn, and I approve this message. And I'm running for Congress because we owe it to future Iowans to fix the mess that was created in Washington, D.C. I've had real experience creating jobs, cutting taxes, and balancing budgets while mayor and in the state senate. If you trust me to represent you, I promise I'll go to Washington, D.C. and do the right thing and come home every Sunday to spend time with my wife, my kids, and my neighbors here in Iowa. We cannot leave this country in worse shape than we found it. I will not pass this debt on to my children or yours. I will go to Washington, D.C. and tell them enough is enough. Standing together is the only way we're going to get Washington, D.C. to listen, and I hope you'll join me in this fight.
Brad Zahn for United States Congress.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We have our good friends Jonathan Narcisse here with us in the studio. We've got Benji Cunningham calling in by phone. Benji, it's been too long. When are you getting out of the cold, weed, haze, Colorado smoke and get back to Iowa, God's country, man?
I'll tell you what, I think I'll be there actually next week.
Oh,
so, I'd love to sit there and chop it up with Lefty.
Okay, coincidentally, I'm not going to be there.
But I'd love to have you be a co-host.
So
next Tuesday,
we can talk about this off the air probably, but we wanted to quick have a good shout out to our friends Des Moines Anesthesia. They got offices here in Des Moines. They got offices in Fort Dodge. They'll take care of all of your surgical needs that you would need an anesthesiologist for. I know that they make you feel all right so that you can continue to feel all right on into the future. So Des Moines Anesthesia sponsors the show. We sure do appreciate their support. We're talking about some of the more recent, and guys, I've said this before and I'll say it again, this happened. It seems to be on a loop. It seems that we're on a broken record with race in this country where somebody says something, just despicable or dumb or insensitive or whatever adjective you want to use, and then we got to sit and talk about it. But one of the questions that I raised to Pat here, and I wanted to get you two gentlemen's take on it, is, for example, Cliven Bundy spouts off some stuff that goes viral because this stuff always goes viral, and the Democrats all stand up and say, "Oh, can you believe how racist all the conservatives are?" Don Sterling says some stuff that's pretty awful and has done some stuff that's pretty awful, and you had Fox News stand up and say, "Oh, look at how racist these Democrats are," because he'd given some Democratic candidates in the past. Why can't we not seem to agree that racism is bad and ask just universally and stay away from the question of which political stripe is more racist? Jonathan, what do you think about that? I feel like that question of
here's
who's more racist.
Here's the problem.
Blows it all up.
But here's part of the problem. When it comes to the issue of race, you basically have Republicans who are pretty spineless, which is why, on the one hand, they are often quick to call out their own, like David Duke or Trent Lott, or in this case, Cliven Bundy, but rarely speak to the issue of race in general because they're so sensitive to having been called racist that they don't speak out unless it's an internal issue. So when you have a Democrat who really engages in racist behavior, Republicans tend to stay away from it. Democrats, on the other hand, use the race issue like it's their own special private weapon, like a trump in a game of cards. And they know that Republicans will back off any issue, like voter ID. There's a legitimate debate there. But it's not necessarily a racist debate. But as soon as Republicans say we would like to have photos used for voter identification, Democrats say it's racist and Republicans fade away. So, or even I'll give you another issue. I've been a strong proponent of requiring identification to use EBT cards, not because it's racist, but because there's a huge amount of fraud involved. Not only because there's fraud in terms of taxpayers, but when you don't require ID, those cards get sold and the proceeds get used for things like tobacco, alcohol, gambling, and illicit drugs. And so in communities where I've lived or worked, Waterloo, Davenport, Des Moines, folks end up shooting guns because of this subsidy of the drug trade. So it's not irresponsible. It doesn't lack compassion. But as soon as the issue's raised up, you have folks say, oh, that's racism. No, the exploitation of poverty is often racist. And in fact, in Iowa, I didn't necessarily want to get into this, but here's part of the problem. You have a Democratic Party and a Democratic-controlled Senate and a Democratic then-controlled House that was absolutely silent when a state senator, now the gubernatorial nominee of the Democratic Party, went off on a racist N-word tirade attacking a black legislator until that legislator's staff person stood up and said, basically, stop it, in not those general enough words. And then this person has been given a pass by local media. Now, in all honesty, had that been Branstad or Republican who would have used the N-word again and again in anger at the state capitol during session, that person would still be being burned in effigy.
Yeah, and this is, and
that is a partisan issue.
With respect,
because Republicans
though, this is exactly the point that I'm making.
But I'm saying Republicans should have called him out. Democrats should have censored him. The party should have denounced him.
But why is that spineless from the Republican perspective, though?
Huh?
That's why is that spineless from? You said that the Republicans.
No, I'm saying on the issue. Listen, in Iowa, on the issue of race, there's absolute. Listen, Republicans have been called racist so often in Iowa that when there's clear, incontrovertible racism, for example, in Des Moines and in Davenport and in Waterloo, the county attorneys are pretty much Democrats. They disproportionately prosecute based on race. When you look at the issue of what's going on with the Des Moines Human Rights Commission, you have a city that created a potential financial disaster, a $40 million financial disaster, where incompetence was shared by leadership all the way around. The sole African-American director of a city department goes out and finds money to help sustain his underfunded agency and literally is chastised and disciplined because he did that. And it's one of the more egregious examples of racism, but they're Democrats being racist, so nobody calls them out. The responsible thing would be for Republicans to say, you know, this isn't actually about race. Your actions are based on race. But the truth is you're engaging in practices that are going to cost taxpayers money, and therefore you need to stop it. So there's a lot of bad public policy and a lot of bad public actions that take place because you don't have Republicans here with the courage to call out Democrats who have become in Iowa a very elitist and racist party.
Now,
so if I hear you correctly, what you're trying to articulate is a bipartisan, more of a human right between right and wrong. It is wrong to treat people in an adverse way based upon skin color or creed or sexual orientation. That's what you're saying. And you know what, quite frankly, it's an integrity thing.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that whenever Democrats...
let him speak, John.
Well, no, he asked me a question.
Oh, all right.
He paraphrased what I said. No, I'm not saying that.
But he's not saying that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, we have to take another break. We're going to be back right after this. Don't forget to tune in to Des Moines Anesthesia on their website, DesMoinesAnesthesiaPC.com. Their number should be right up here, 263-5316. We want to thank them for the support of our show. We're going to be back right after the break, after word from our sponsors. Don't forget to follow us on Doc N Lefty, Facebook, and Twitter.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. We got a few minutes left. Benji, I wanted to you remember my question from the last segment. I want to get your take on what this is all this kind of the broader discussion that we've been having.
Right.
So go ahead.
I think what this deals with. First of all, I think that his punishment, I think, is just. And I think the $2.5 million, that's not going to hurt this guy. What it's based upon, what this whole thing is based upon, is money. Some of the moral values that we're dealing with is not a Republican or a Democrat thing. It has to deal with right and wrong. And that's what that deals with. And, you know, what's unfortunate in Iowa, being a native Iowan, you know, and my father, you know, being born and raised and has a name in Waterloo, Iowa, he too, if he were alive, he would say the same thing. It's based upon the right and wrong. He has battled and went through racism, you know, growing up in Waterloo, Iowa, just like I have. But I think that we as a people need to stop moving more towards the Republican and Democrat. We need to go towards right and wrong.
Well, but how are you going to do that? How are you going to give, well, and to paraphrase John, how are you going to give the Republicans a spine to be able to say, well, hold on, this isn't a racial issue. This is an issue for all people. I know I got in all kinds of trouble about immigration, but the bottom line is I was trying to say, this isn't just a white problem or just a brown problem. It affects everybody. So how are you going to be able to give the Republicans a spine to say, listen, we need to change this. We need to go back to right and wrong?
That's the $1 million question as to why the Republicans are not in power right now, to be honest with you. You know, me being, you know, a conservative black Republican, you know, that I'm not going to be the type of person that just falls in line with the company or the company talking points. It's like the spine, it just needs to be some people that, I guess my moral compass comes from my military experience and my upbringing. And there is when it comes to compromising principles, that's why our country is in trouble the way that it is, because we have compromised our principles, and nobody, Democrat or Republican, has the guts to speak up to say that it's wrong.
All right. Well, Jonathan, he wants to. How would you tell the Republicans to grow a spine?
The fact of the matter is that this is a partisan issue because it's a calculated partisan strategy. It's a calculated partisan strategy.
More from the Democrats' perspective.
Well, but I'm saying that when, you know, for example, when you say we want to move to allowing the money to follow the kids, say, for example, a voucher system.
Yes.
If a Republican in Iowa says we think a voucher system would work better in Iowa for students than the current way we fund public education, the first thing Democrats are going to say in Iowa to Republicans is, That's an elitist, racist notion. And Pat, you know this.
But how are you going to give the Republicans the spine?
Well, I'm not.
That's
I'm not a
How
Republican.
How are you going to do that?
I'm not a Republican personally. I'd like to see both parties wither away and die.
All right.
Okay, but having
the question
said that,
before you is how are you? You know,
you're saying both parties need a spine, basically, is what you're saying.
Well,
no,
I
mean,
the Democrats don't lack a spine. The Democrats are like vicious rabbit. You know,
you've seen Lefty.
You've got like in Polk County.
I can't even control myself right now.
The Polk County Democratic machine consists of ravenous wolves. And in many respects, outside of the Branstad machine, Republicanism exists of lazy, fat, sensitive sheep. And so you have a situation where outside of the Branstad machine, now the Branstad machine is ruthless, which is why they get along. Which is why they get along so well with Democrats. Which is also why they're able to pull things like they did at the county conventions, and then you get a bunch of people who whine and complain and cry in their soda pop.
Here's my thing about Cliven Bundy being accused of being a racist. If you look, there's a Reverend Jackson, and it's not the Reverend Jackson. It's not that, but it went viral about 6 months ago about this black reverend talking about, listen, we're selling ourselves, being the black community, into slavery by taking all this government money handout. And Cliven Bundy, if you read everything he wrote, he mimics that. It's just he didn't say it correctly. Well, now, Benji, what do you think about that? I mean, he didn't say it. I mean, he almost verbatim repeats what this black minister says, but they edit this thing so it doesn't sound right. So
both were actually deplorable comments, and both were, and it's like, but again, Reverend Wright gets the pass. But here's the other deal too.
Well, Reverend Wright. Well,
it was
I don't
Reverend
think
Jackson. It was a Reverend Jackson, but not the Reverend Jackson.
And Reverend Wright certainly didn't get a pass. He got kicked out of the caravan.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, he wasn't there when he didn't get to stand next to Barry when he got elected.
No, I mean it was really. So.
But my point on that is that there seems to be such a double standard in both parties. I'm going to say that Republicans have a tendency to keep their mouths shut because we're not as inclusive as we need to be. And I'm not saying open the tent entirely wide. We need to stand for something, and it has nothing to do with down the color line. The Democrats, from that perspective, use that to buy votes, and that's even worse.
Well, yeah. and Republicans have another.
Hold on a second. We have a text. Let me put my glasses on. Rats took it off. It says,
I'm going to put my phone through the security real quick so I can go through the other lines. So
all right.
Keep on going, but I'll be right
back.
So
it says, regardless of what a pig Sterling is, because I think just about everybody agrees on that point, I believe he has the right to say whatever he wants in a private conversation.
Well, of course he does.
But the problem is there any illegality to this?
He's not going to jail.
That's not the point.
He's not. First of all, he's not going to jail.
The NBA can do whatever they want.
He's not. He's part of an association that is dependent upon certain standards from its members. He put in jeopardy their entire product. He's not going to jail.
Well, but
he's
government's
being
not doing
fired.
it. No one said he doesn't have the right to say it.
It's like Nancy Sebring. Nancy Sebring decided to sex on the job.
Yep.
Yes.
And she got fired. Okay,
she
didn't go to jail.
But what I'm saying on this is, what's the legality of recording this private conversation and then releasing it to third parties?
It depends on whatever the state law. I mean, in Iowa, that's perfectly legal.
Actually, that state line, it's actually against the law. In the state of California.
In California, one-sided recording?
Yeah, it's totally against the law.
Okay.
But, and the thing is, she's going to completely get by with that. Completely. Because the law of public opinion, there's going to be somebody that will pick her case up, and she's going to walk through it.
But you know what, though? Here's my concern. You had a young man, he's a son of a local minister who, during spring break, took his younger brothers and sisters bowling here in Des Moines, and then afterwards dropped them off to his parents, and he was going to his parents' house. And on the way there, the police, without identifying, put a bunch of bullets in the back of his car. and he was shot in the back. And then there's been this basic cover-up of that incident. You know,
so you're saying racism is everywhere.
What I'm saying is racism is here. You know,
right here.
this is the thing we're all very good at. We're all very good. Just like when they raised, people were losing their mind over the $650 million President Obama spent on his healthcare website one time out of $1 trillion. And I said to people, every year in Iowa, we spend $750 million on students that don't exist as part of one of the state's biggest fraud scandals, and nobody wants to do anything about that. And people look at you like, oh my goodness, what are you talking about? You know, if you take care of home, the biggest way to cure, for example, the federal fiscal disaster is to start fixing local governance, because then you're not having people lobby to get $25 million for an airport expansion, and then you're not lobbying to have people send $500,000 in a grant here and there from the federal level, and then you basically are saying to Governor Branstad, you know, if you just simply said to Chuck Palmer, I want you to do one thing, Chuck, authenticate citizenship before you give out benefits, it would save a quarter to $300 million a year in Iowa. But nobody talks about that because that's home. Well, and there comes a point when you have to start talking about fixing home, because if you fix home, you begin fixing the rest of it.
That's right. We're going to give you the last word, Benji. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, I think that's a great concept that he's talking about. And I think that, Iowa being so important in the presidential elections coming up,
Absolutely.
I think that's fantastic. But, I will just go on record when it comes to the punishment was based upon a business decision based upon money. So that's my only thing.
All right.
The guy's ignorant, and that's it. So
we want to thank Benji Cunningham for calling in and sharing his views. We like to say thank you to John Narcisse for showing up and sharing his views. We always enjoy having John on because he tells it like it is.
You agree with me?
Please visit our yes.
You do, because I tell the truth.
Please visit our sponsors, Halo Capital, LubinaSlawFirm.com, BertroshaAssociates.com, BradZonForCongress.com, or I think it's just BradZon.com. And I know I'm forgetting somebody. Anesthesiologist, Des Moines Anesthesia PC. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and please visit our site, DocNLefty.com, and leave a comment on there. We'd appreciate it. We'll be back next week. We got a gubernatorial candidate, Dr. Lee Hieb, Hieb. She'll be joining us next week. We really appreciate everybody joining in. Thank you and goodbye.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.